Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Josh Mansfield, the teacher with the demon, and with me is Nathan Fox, one of the founders of LSATdemon.com and the weekly podcast Thinking LSAT. Nate, our email today comes from Tula, and it is first section anxiety.
Hey guys, I'm an LSAT Demon podcast listener and a basic subscriber. I'm 3 weeks out from my first official LSAT, and I've been running into a consistent issue on my practice tests. I tend to score significantly lower on the first section compared to the rest of the test. I know it's mostly nerves and just not being fully locked in yet, because I find myself rereading and forgetting all the skills I have developed. Once I'm past that first section, things settle. I consistently miss no more than 3 questions per section and feel way more confident. The same thing happens when I do single section drills. I fully understand every section and can predict the answers. Just wondering if you've got any tips for getting into the right mindset from the start. Is there anything you'd recommend to avoid that slow start or to simulate that warmed up feeling before section 1? Thank you. The podcast and Demon have been super helpful so far. You know, I'm not sure I can even take Tula at their word here, because Tula said, once I'm past the first section, things settle.
Mm-hmm.
I consistently miss no more than 3 questions per section. But then says the same thing happens when I do single section drills. I fully understand every section and can predict the answers. So in other words, when Tula just does single sections, they don't have this first section anxiety?
Or do they miss? I don't know. It doesn't. Do they struggle with the first 10?
Do they if they do, when they say single section drills, do they mean they're doing back-to-back single sections and then they struggle on the first one?
Maybe. Taking this at face, I think the first issue is something that Tula speaks to a little bit, which is the mindset that, and I've talked to students a lot about this over the past couple of weeks, actually, is that Tula is thinking about something other than the problem that's in front of her.
Yeah.
And on that first section, especially on a practice test, they're thinking about the score that's going to be at the end. They're thinking about what does that mean. They're thinking this is so much more serious than drilling. And every time you think about something else other than the question that's in front of you, that is time wasted. That is less quality work on that question. And that's the problem that I'm seeing here. Like the most glaring issue.
Totally. Yeah. It feels like it's just, Tula says, I know it's mostly nerves. Okay. That part I believe. Why are you taking it so seriously? It's just a practice test. And when you take your official test, you need to treat it like it's just another practice test. So my theory here is that, Tula, you're just trying way too hard on these practice sections. And I don't think you need to be warmed up. I just think you need to slow down and actually understand what you're reading. You shouldn't have to reread question 1 unless you're reading it too quickly.
Right.
Maybe you struggle with the first sentence and you reread that first sentence to make sure that you're understanding as you go. That's fine. But my guess is that Tula's like racing through the first question, and then realizing that they just have no idea what the answer is. Oh, okay, well, you didn't even read the passage well enough to really know what you're looking for. You got to fix that part.
Here's let me take this though at the most generous interpretation that I can.
Okay.
I used to study right after I got off work.
Yeah.
I had a busy job. I had a demanding job. I had things that were still on my mind. Before I did anything that was going to be my actual studying for the day, I did 3 LR questions. I randomly drilled them. I did 3. I didn't care how I did. I didn't, I might have reviewed them, but I didn't take them nearly as seriously. I just did 3 questions to get whatever else I was doing before I studied out of my mind. And then, if I was going to do a time section, if I was going to keep drilling, if I was going to change to RC, whatever I did after that, I made my change. But it's the most generous interpretation is this like something else that you're just getting like sitting down to start studying, and that gets you in the zone. That's what I did when I studied. But again, I think that would belie a bigger mindset issue that I think is present here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you need to get rid of distractions. Maybe you need to be studying. If that were the case, I would say, hey, why don't you study before work instead of after work?
Sure, sure.
Because you're too tired. I'd really prefer that you just bring your highest quality 1 hour per day. Uh, it is true that sometimes people find it helpful to do a couple questions as like a warm up, but I just kind of think that's like being a little bit too precious about it. Are you going to do that on the day of the official test as well? Okay, I suppose if you do it on all your practice tests, then I would say fine, you can do it on your official test. But it just seems like, Tula thinks, "Oh, I'm forgetting all the skills I have developed." But what skills? I mean, the only skills that the LSAT's really testing is just, can you read carefully and do you have basic common sense logic on board?
Hmm.
So, I don't know. It's kind of like Tula seems to be forgetting how easy the test actually is. And that's easy to do. If you go a little bit too fast and you aren't really understanding what you're reading, then the test seems mysterious and weird.
Hmm.
But if you slow down and just make sure you're understanding as you go, building comprehension right off the bat from the first sentence, um, you'll realize that, hey, there's just, the argument has, there's some facts there. If there's a conclusion there, the conclusion's probably bullshit. It's probably bullshit in kind of obvious ways. You could make common sense, normal objections to these arguments. And in doing so, you end up predicting the answers. If you haven't gotten to that point yet, Tula, then your problem is not nerves or anything else. It's just that you haven't practiced the test enough to see how easy it actually is. But once you see how easy it actually is, hopefully those nerves would just go away.
I also wonder if this is a case of poor self-diagnosis, which we see in a whole bunch of ways. I wonder if on the past two practice tests, Tula had bad first sections and said, "Oh, that's my problem, is I'm bad at first sections." Say the same thing when I have a student who comes to me and says, "Oh, I struggle with strength and questions." Do you? Or did you just miss a couple strength and questions and those stuck out to you, right?
People do love taking small samples way too seriously.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's just no reason, Tula, why you should have first section anxiety if you're good enough at the test. And there's no reason why you should be unfocused on the first section or need time to lock in or whatever. If you're good enough at the test, then you should just plan on number one basically being easy, because it is. You just have to slow down and read it well enough to let it be easy. I think that's
Great.
all I got for Tula.
I think so. Me too. Great. Thanks, Tula. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.